It sounds like you're playing like World of Warcraft or something. You are like the craziest clicker.
Oh, just now you just heard the clicking? I won't click then. I thought you wouldn't be able to hear that. I'm not really going to pay attention to any of this interview, so I was trying to do other things.
I was going to say, it's not very professional if you're going to play a game or browse the web while you do this here.
Yeah, no, I'm finishing up Uncharted.
Welcome to the Schmoeville podcast. My name is Ryan Snelling. Thank you so much for being here. If you've never been here before, we talk about the Schmoes. We talk about people like Mark Ellis, Kristian Harloff. I happen to have him right here, right now. What's up, buddy?
What's going on, dude? I was excited. I thought that you were actually going to introduce Ellis again.
No. I've had enough of Ellis for a while. And I think you actually might be feeling a little bit guilty because I've had several conversations with Ellis now. And, I guess you just had to come on and finally get a word in with me, right?
Well, it was more about not letting Ellis steal the spotlight because he likes to do that. So I had to let people know that it's just not the Mark Ellis show.
And you also could have said that you're just way busier than Ellis could ever dream of being. So
no, that's just the illusion I put up. Everybody else does stuff. I've just been playing Uncharted for the last 6 months.
So you're a gamer. See, I just started playing.
No.
Oh, you're not?
No, I used to like I don't know if I've told the story on the air or not, but for Knights of the Republic, I took a week off. I took my vacation time so I could play Knights of the Republic. It's like certain games that I get into, then I'm hooked. But as Uncharted is just a game I needed to get. But I'm married with a kid. It's impossible for me to play. I played for a little bit, and I still have been on the same board for the last 2 months.
Right. I don't have a PS4, unfortunately, so I haven't been able to get into Uncharted. But I just started playing The Division only because of the movie announcement, actually. It sparked my curiosity. But we're not allowed to talk about movies on here, Kristian.
How dare you?
It's really funny, and to give people context, and I've alluded to this before, our relationship over the past few months has essentially just been
volatile.
We've had some pretty good in-depth conversations about what we wanted this podcast to be, but then it got to a certain point where I'm hoping that you just kind of felt confident to let me do my thing. And then, guys, I couldn't talk to Kristian forever, so I'm really surprised that he's doing this podcast. No, sorry.
Need some water? Some slap you in the back or something?
I got distracted. Sorry.
Sorry.
This is why I edit this podcast, folks.
No, you gotta see that one. That's where you gotta leave. You gotta leave those little special moments. Sometimes you gotta leave those in there, unless it's complete disaster.
See, this is part of the magic. No one knows when I fumble. No one knows when I go to the bathroom. I just lift it right out. No.
Right. You look a lot better than you really are. Right.
Where was I going with that? I don't even remember.
Who knows?
No, that's right. Our relationship with this podcast. Yeah. So I'm just curious about, you told me when we were talking about doing this podcast, you told me that this was kind of a dream that you had. Even though Paul had I answered Paul's post in the Schmoeville Facebook group about doing it. And so I was really curious, what's it actually like now that you have this podcast, essentially?
Well, what we're going to do with the kind of the show that you guys are essentially doing now is back in phase 5 when we were doing the Schmoes Know podcast network before it turned into the Popcorn Talk network. We one of the shows that we were going to do was the after show, and it was going to be basically the B team, whether or not that was going to be Ace and Cody and Copster, and they were going to do kind of what you guys are doing, to where just kind of they're breaking down the week in Schmoeville and the behind the scenes stuff and an inside look for the fans that don't get to see the other things. But then when you guys had pitched your idea and the fact that the two fans from Schmoeville who were really seeing it on a fan's point of view and a fan's through a fan's lens, I said, that just makes sense. And we joke about the fact that you guys aren't talking about movies and TV, but I think it's a hindrance to you guys if you're doing that, because we're covering stuff on whether it's the main show or reviews. And if you guys are kind of going over it, I think that the attraction to that show is to hear what you guys are saying. And I said this about you last night. You're not like, you don't get nervous and scared about the things that you're saying about the show, and you voice your opinions on stuff. And I hope that you feel that I've never said to you, hey man, don't bring up that particular topic, because that's not what this show is supposed to be. This show is supposed to be, if you hear something or you have something on a comment or you see something on the show and you want to talk about it as if we weren't listening, then you should be able to do that. And I think you guys have done that excellently.
Yeah, we appreciate that. I mean, but the thing to take away from what you just said is the fact that there's not a whole lot that we can say that's negative. And just because of the content that you guys put out.
You do.
Like what?
I like it. Well, there's been a couple. I mean, I'll definitely so this thing you keep saying about fan fatigue, we'll get into that in a little bit. You have your opinion on fan fatigue. You talked about certain Schmoeville matches that you thought weren't very good. You've talked about movie talk episodes that you thought weren't good. You've talked about parts of the show, the main show, that maybe you didn't like. I mean, poor cops, you shit on the guy's Blu-ray reviews every week.
Oh, no.
but that's what I'm talking about, is that you should be able to, if you don't like particular things, because then even like last week, when I thought it was a pretty fascinating conversation that the three of you guys had, and then where you and Noah were talking about how you don't watch movie talk as much as you used to, but then Luke was like, well, I still watch it every day. I love that perspective. I love hearing what you guys are doing and why you guys are listening to things, why you're not listening to things. So it's constructive negative stuff. It's not for me. Even so, I got this fucking ball bag yesterday on Twitter, and the guy just continually just kept hounding me and Ellis on the Schmoedown. Like, just kept going after us. Not constructive. Not constructive is the way, like what I was just talking about, what you do. It was more just like, if we put out like a top 10 rankings thing that a fan did, he's like, well, this is what the real ranking should be. And it's like, why can't you say, I enjoyed this guy's rankings? To be honest with you, I think that maybe this is the way that you guys should be doing it. That's what I like. That's what I like what you guys did, because when it's more like, hey guys, I'm not really digging what you're doing, and I kind of, what if this, what if that? That's a conversation. That's why we started Schmoes in the first place. It's when people just are so kind of like, they think like they're so like entitled sometimes that they can just say whatever they want. Like, I banned the guy, and then he's like, oh, you're arrogant. You're arrogant. This is why Alicia Malone left the show. And it's like, just get lost. No one needs you. Go away. We don't need that kind of negativity. But the reverse to that is, if the same guy would have said, hey man, I don't really like your top 10 rankings because of this. I think that the way that this guy actually serves the league better, that's stuff I listen to. That's the kind of stuff that I'm like, oh, okay, you know what? The guy makes a good point, even if I don't agree with it. But there's just ways to say things like you guys were doing last week that I thought was, not necessarily negative, but it was good constructive criticism.
That reminds me, we need to get the laptop back in front of you during the live show, for sure.
I can't do it. I shaved 8 years off my life every time I put the damn thing up.
But I don't really think my commentary on like Collider Movie Talk, that's not really constructive criticism, because I'm not saying that you all should do less episodes. Like, that's not really the issue. It's just like my own life and the fact that I'm way too busy to stay caught up in every single thing you do. So, but it is constructive criticism in a way, because then it makes me and Dennis look and say, well, if this is, let's say this is a common thought for a lot of people, is that they're happy that we're giving them so much stuff, but it's taken away from people who normally watch 5 days a week on Movie Talk. So what do we do? The answer to me that is to build the subscription rate and to build the Movie Talk audience the same way we build the Heroes audience or the Nightmares audience or these different audiences. That's a way for that is constructive criticism, because the more that we hear, okay, well, this is Snelling is saying that he can't watch these shows because of his schedule, and there's so much for him to have. This so-called fan fatigue, as he brings up, right. There's a reason for it. So let's step back, let's look at that. So it's still constructive criticism. Interesting. Well, I think it's a huge credit to you that you actually listen to your fans so closely. So I guess my next question is there ever a time when you constantly, if you're getting berated by people on Twitter or YouTube or whatever, do you ever accidentally, I guess, if someone is actually calmly trying to give you criticism, or basically, do you ever accidentally mistake positive criticism for negative criticism? Are there ever weird interactions between you and fans?
Sure, I'm sure I'm guilty of that. I'm sure that maybe very similar to what you're talking about with your exchange with Freddie Prinze Jr. And I think that that's probably happened before. And then the person comes back and says, no, I was actually saying this, and then I always, like I just said before, not to repeat myself, encourage constructive conversation. Like the conversations that it's like, okay, well, yeah, I misunderstood you that you were saying that. Let's kind of get around that. Maybe that tweet maybe it came off a little harsh, so I'll get rid of that tweet. But sometimes people just, like I said before, just feel like they can say whatever it is in a way that it's not, and then they come back with, oh, you can't take criticism. It's like, that's not criticism. That's you being an asshole face.
Right. Not to get any more negative than we already are so far, but I want to talk to you about this because I've mentioned it to Ellis actually off mic, and we had a quick discussion about it. But I want to know a little bit about when Schmoes was really growing, like at the start. And I know that these are his words, and I guess you agree that, you didn't really ask to be where you are, or I guess you weren't really trying to get big in this space. Is that accurate? It just kind of happened?
Yeah, I mean, look, you always start something. I don't think you ever start a project without a hope of success. Right. I mean, you always do something because you want people to like what you're doing, and you want a mass amount of people to get it. But it certainly wasn't the goal. The goal was to open up Laptop, combine our stand-up comedy backgrounds with the real take on film. Remember, when Mark and I started doing this, there were 5 people maybe doing movie reviews, and 4 of them aren't doing them anymore. It was Grace Randolph. Who the hell else was the other one? Spill was doing it. They're no longer doing it. There's Fury the Film Fan. He's not doing it anymore. And there were like 2 other guys, and they're not doing it anymore. And we had started. We didn't even know what this space was. So we opened up the Laptop. It looked like a damn snuff film. It was you look at it's like 320. You can barely even see it. It's like that's Nicolas Cage's Super 8 movie or whatever it was, and it looked so bad, but yet it's developing it the same way like when a stand-up comedian for about a year or 2 gets comfortable on stage learning their material. That's kind of what we were doing. So there was definitely not we're going to create this brand and this fan base, and we're going to do a show every Thursday night. That it just kind of evolved through things that we were doing.
So was there ever an anxiety? Were there ever hardships? Were there ever times when you looked at Ellis and thought that you didn't think you were going to be able to do this anymore, whether it be a problem between you two? Because I know as a creator myself, I have my own movie review podcast. It kind of sucks to hear that you guys only have been achieving so much, and I've never really heard much about the hardships from you guys. So are there any at all, or was it just pretty much a match made in heaven?
No, there's many, many hardships. And there were many times where I said, can I do this? Can we do this? Is this worth doing? Should I just go back into film development? Should I stick with this producing reality? I was producing reality TV. Yeah. And I was working 2 jobs. I had, when I first started, I just had a fiance. Then it was a wife, and then it was a wife and a kid. And it was certainly, I wasn't doing this full time. I was trying to make it full time, but it wasn't. And there were just times where, how come the subscription rate isn't growing at a faster rate? How come we're doing these great things and we're not picking up the way that we want to be picking up? How come we don't have more sponsors? And how come we're not able to consistently do this? And the space wasn't kind of growing, and people didn't understand YouTube, and remember with our live show, tons of hardships from when we first started the show. It was just a podcast in a room on a trunk. Right. And then it went from having to had to pay our engineer to record 3 shows in one day, and then we had to had released those, just the audio. And that was like, okay, we were happy that the YouTube audience at the time, whether it be 15,000 subscribers or whatever it was, that they were listening. So like, that's cool. We didn't really know what was happening. And then when we went to video at Toad Hop, like, oh, this is something completely new. And then the studio started to kind of catch on and send in guests. And we're like, oh, so we actually have something here. And that started to work great. And we were getting all these opportunities. And then Toad Hop decided that, you know, that they just weren't going to be producing shows anymore. They just weren't going to, they just couldn't do it. They were focusing on other things, and we had nowhere to go. So we had this growth, this big thing, and we were just nothing was happening. And we had this great crew, and we're sitting at David Fickus, is a good friend of ours. He let us not rent out, but he let us just kind of tape the show during phase 4. And Mark and I we're looking at each other, and we're sitting on the couch. We're in a Google Hangout. It looks like crap after the stuff that we just done. We're like, is anything going to happen? And then phase 5 happens, you know, and then phase 5 ends, and we don't know what's going to happen there. There's always ups and downs. And it's just a matter of looking and saying, can I do this? Will I do this? And do I really want to do this? Yeah. And you have to really embrace it all the way through. But the core of it all is believing in what you're talking about. Because if the audience doesn't want to listen to you talk about the things that you're trying to build, then you're doing it for nothing.
And obviously it's paid off. I mean, just to bring it around to where you are now, like, are you satisfied? Are you still hungry? What do you want in the future, whether it be with Collider or your Schmoes No Show?
Blessing and a curse is that I'm never satisfied. It's just a problem. The problem, and I think the reason that I'm able to keep doing things is that I just there's always stuff that I want to make sure that we as a team are doing more of. And now whether that's more shows or more crew members or more bits or you know, more projects and what the next level can be, more guests, there's always something like, and I just feel like for me personally, and it's just something that I'm definitely happy with the fan base that we have, but I feel that we put out a quality show every single week on Thursday night. I feel like our reviews have been pretty solid. I feel like everything that we're doing have been solid, and I feel like the channel should have 1 million subscribers, but we don't. So that's on Mark and myself to figure out how to make that happen, how to get more people in Schmoeville, how to build that community. That's on us. So no, I'm never satisfied in what we have today, because I always feel tomorrow can be more in the way, and it's not a greed, it's more of a just knowing what we know and what our crew deserves, and what honestly what Schmoeville kind of deserves, because there's just more exposure for what you guys, like last night after that tribute that we were able to put together for Dylan Esposito, and watching how great of a community Schmoeville has become, just for the fan base alone, like that, you just sit back and you go, that's why we're doing this. Schmoeville alone should have 100,000, 200,000 people. And it's not for people to be talking about what we're doing, but it's to see that kind of community. Like that's what we want to see.
Right. And I can't host a show called Schmoeville without mentioning Dylan, by the way. I didn't, unfortunately, have the pleasure of talking to him or knowing him in any way. And I'm not going to disrespect his memory by acting like I did. But I was really moved by what you all did last night. What RB3 did, how the community and the Schmoeville Facebook page has come together. I've just been really impressed, and obviously our thoughts and prayers are out to everyone who's been hurt by this tragedy. To bring it back, is it fair to say that, I know you worked in development, is it fair to say that people that are in this YouTube space, and even reaching out to people like Chris Stuckman, did all of you guys get to where you are now because you had the dream of actually becoming a filmmaker?
No, I mean, I can't speak on Chris Stuckman. I know that, I've had many conversations with Chris and consider him a friend. I know that he wanted to be a filmmaker, and I think he still does. So I can't speak about what his goals and aspirations were. But as far as Ellis and I go, no, we never had any plans to be filmmakers, and I didn't while I was at Silver. I mean, I've made films, I've directed films, but that wasn't a goal for me. I don't know how to make that stop. It's just problem is if I turn it down, I turn you down. So hold on a second.
Oh, I didn't hear it.
You didn't even hear it? All right, well, then never mind. But anyway, as far as that goes, no, I never wanted to be a particular filmmaker. I certainly wanted to be involved in films. That's why I worked in development for so long.
And
I've
what you
always
talked
loved
about
movies.
with Riley, how you all were writing the He-Man script and everything.
Yeah.
So when I meant filmmaker, I meant like not just directing or acting per se, but just producing films. So where I'm going with this essentially, and the reason why I bring up Chris Stuckman, and I think I even asked Ellis this at one point, is that is there ever going to get to a point, and we can talk about the scripted series later, but is there ever going to be a point where some of you guys band together and produce something, like whether it be like an independent film, or would you develop an actual TV show or do anything like that?
Well, I think you just said it, and I guess we'll get into it whenever you want. But like that's the next step. The web series is more than just a web series. It's going to be a pilot that might actually turn into an actual series. And then we're working on something else with Campia that might actually turn into a series as well. So, production is something that we definitely want to go into, and something that my background calls for. And I know Mark wants to start producing stuff too. And as we're constantly looking at things that we're just kind of moving to the next direction, because in 10, 15 years, we still want to be running a company together, but we just don't know if we're going to be the on-camera guys. So we definitely have to evolve.
Sure, for sure. Just kind of transition into what we're going to be talking about with like the Schmoedown and the recap of last night. Real quick, I just want to ask, like, of all the shows that you put out, what are you a legitimate fan of? Like, what's something that you're producing that you would actually watch if you weren't producing it?
Something that I'm not on?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You can't don't say Jedi Council.
It would be Jedi Council if I wasn't hosting and someone else was hosting it. Of course, it would be Jedi Council, because I like it, and it was kind of the reason we started in the first place. Is that the format to where it's taken off of that movie talk format of the Sports Center for Star Wars.
Yeah.
That's something I would listen to all the time, and so that would be the show that I would watch. I would definitely, if I wasn't involved in it, the Schmoedown would be something for me that I would watch all the time because of the WWE meets movie trivia thing, the theatrics, all that stuff like that. Those are the two shows I'd probably be watching if I wasn't actually involved with them. Those are the ones that I'd be watching.
Get Ellis a cough drop.
I know. I need to get Ellis a cough drop. We're picking up his animal coughs.
What's his deal?
I don't know. He can't hear us. He's probably rocking out to Van Halen or something.
Speaking of Schmoedown, let's talk about last week's. Okay, so Jason Inman versus Grae Drake. So I was really excited to see this match, actually, because I'm a huge fan of what Jason Inman does, but I had no idea what to expect. So I revisited the match again, which is the first time that I've rewatched the Schmoedown. I should probably do it every week because, we recap a week later. But
right.
That was a great match. Like, one of my favorites.
Wasn't it? It was really
awesome.
good. And underrated, because that's what I found. And like I said, when I mentioned the WWE/UFC type thing, it's very similar. If the fans don't know the two competitors, the ratings are lower. And I understand that. I get it. But it's unfortunate, because that was one of the best matches we've had so far. It was back and forth. It came down to the last question. Two people with a lot of personality. It was a lot of fun. Grae's been in the league for a very long time. Jason had a solid debut. It's one that should definitely have been watched. But I get it. What I'm hoping is, as these contenders kind of rise, people go back and they want to watch their first, second, third match, So like those are the things that I'm hoping happens. And we've been seeing that, like, as Mance gets more popular. And once I think that Mance and Roca rematch happens, I think the first one will go up in views. So, that Grae Drake and Inman match was a lot of fun to watch.
You know why Jason won, right?
Because he got all the comic book questions?
No, because he wanted the lost numbers.
Oh, that's true. He did wear the lost numbers.
And
he wanted the lost numbers, yeah.
I don't really appreciate the people that were booing that in the background, because
why? Who was? I guess some of the crowd that was there.
I think some people were lost haters, and I don't appreciate that.
Well, I think that was just I think that's just the crowd still booing JTE from the night before. They just like to boo him.
Let me ask the big question here: when the hell do you record these things?
It's live. It's a live show.
It's bullshit. And you know it.
It's live. It's live. We edit it as it's happening. We have a magic editor that edits it all, and it's live.
No.
Not?
I have a theory that you guys give away the winner every week.
I know your theory sucks because every time you say it, you're wrong.
That's not true. The first time,
it's true.
The day that I came up with that theory, I was right. I was accurate.
No, you weren't. I listened to this show, and you said, you know what? This means that Finstock's going to be Clark. It didn't happen.
Is that your That's not what I sound like at all. Can you not do a Kentucky accent?
I could do Gary Busey. Is that close enough?
No.
I believe that you said that your theory is coming from the left side of Zeus's armpit. That's what I believe on this particular.
Gary, you're going to derail. Gary, you're going to derail this podcast. I'm sorry.
I believe derailing is a good thing when you have soap attached to your earlobes.
I'm going to have to ask you to leave, okay?
You got it. I like bagels.
Shut the door on your way out. Don't let anybody else in.
No, he just ate the door, but it's still going.
Okay. All right. But let's talk about this week's Schmoedown. Okay, so Jeff Snyder versus Sam Levine. All right, so I guess since you're a regular listener on this podcast, you know how I might feel about this, okay? So
sure.
Sam Levine.
You're basing it off their movie talk appearances.
No. I'm basing it off the fact. See, when I talked about Jeff Snyder's first match, I hadn't seen the movie talk appearance yet, so I didn't really know what to think. But I understand that he's a heel. Am I the biggest fan? No, but I'm also not a hater. I'm actually looking forward to seeing more from him because I can actually appreciate a heel and root for them. So
or you love to root against them.
Do what?
Or you love to root against them. Either way.
Yeah, well, okay, but Sam Levine, I'm not judging him based off my issue is that this week there was no shit talking. That's my favorite element.
Yeah.
So is there any way that you can get more out of these people, or is that too much to ask because they are so outside of what you're doing, outside of home base?
No, because I mean, look, the promos. Sometimes you'll get more shit talk in the promos in the beginning, and sometimes you won't get it at all. But that's kind of what I like because you're always going to get people who are saying this is scripted, and is it over the top sometimes? Absolutely. But the competitors say what they want to say, and if they're going to talk smack during the week, you're going to see a lot of smack talk from JTE and Ellis. You're going to see a ton of that,
right.
Because of the history behind it. It's when there's no history between Snyder and Levine. All it is, it's two guys going up against each other because they want a chance to play Clark Wolf. That's the story, and that's what you're going to get. And if you're a Schmoedown follower and you're watching Schmoedown, then you'll know that. If not, then you'll tune in, you'll see the opening promo, you'll watch the match, and that's what you're going to get. I understand, and I actually appreciate the fact that you're looking for the build-up, but I think it makes the matches like me and Signor or Manson Roca that much more special for when it happens. It feels like, okay, these two guys are legitimately going after it, because if Snyder and Levine starts talking smack to each other on Twitter and making videos about each other all the time, then it starts to feel manufactured. If Snyder's on Meet the Movie Press and starts going after Sam, I'll use it, but he's not, so I don't want to force him into doing it. For sure. So what can we expect tonight? I think you're going to see a battle. I think that what people don't realize is, first of all, is how much of a machine Sam Levine is, and I didn't mean to rhyme that, but you also have Jeff Snyder, because people like to root against him, should not be underestimated. JTE as a team, that is a devastating team. So I know Snyder is a hungry dude. I actually really like Jeff Snyder a lot. I think he's a really funny dude. I think he's a good dude. I actually get a kick out of the way that he likes to poke the bear, and the bear being the audience. That's what he does. He doesn't care. So that's kind of his thing. It's been his thing when he was a writer. It's his thing on air. He doesn't care. He just does it. He says, I admire the fact that he says what he wants to say, and he doesn't care if he's going to get hate for it. And I think you're going to see him come out. He's going to probably talk smack during the match. That's just who he is. And he'll probably make a couple riffs towards Sam, and it's going to be a battle. I don't think we're getting a knockout from either one, because Levine, didn't knock out Hal, but he beat him up pretty bad in the first round. And then we saw what Snyder did to El Miimbe. But I don't think that's happening. I think it's going to be a Rocky 2 type battle with these guys just kind of going head to head for the whole thing.
Okay, guys, so I listened to what Kristian just said, and I think he's applying the reverse psychology method. So here's what I think is going to happen based on what Kristian just said. There will most definitely be a knockout, and Sam Levine will be the winner.
You think so? That's your prediction?
No, wait, no, you said Sam was really good, so it's the opposite. Jeff Snyder will knock out Sam Levine.
Is that your prediction? Is that your official prediction?
No, I'm not sticking to that at all.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna go with Sam Levine. I think he's a machine. Again, not to rhyme, but I'll just leave it at that. I'm not sure what else to expect, but I'm just looking for a great match regardless. You know, and that's the payoff, right? Even if there's not a lot of build up throughout the week, as long as it's a great match, then, you know, that's all I can ask for. So
yeah, I think you're going to get that. I really do. I think you're going to get a good match with these two. They know so much. I mean, they know but they both. The thing that's interesting about these guys is that everybody in this game has holes in their game. It's just a matter of if the wheel hits that hole. But what I'll tell you is that a lot of times you'll get people to where, oh, well, that person's weakness is not that person's weakness. These guys have the same weaknesses, I think. I think they have the same strengths and they have the same weaknesses. It's a very cool, evenly paced match. And I think that we're going to have, I think that whoever wins, we're going to even have as just a great match when they play Clark Wolf in a few months.
I hope so, for sure. By the way, I didn't mention that. I think Jason Inman is someone too, maybe not necessarily on Clark Wolf's level, but I don't think people are watching him close enough. Like, I think he's going to do some damage.
Well, they're going to for his next match.
I was going to say, I think he is ready to do some damage in this.
Do you know what his next match is, right?
Not off the top of my head. What is it?
Me.
Uh-oh. When's that? Is that August?
That's going to happen in August, the beginning of August. Jason and I are, because it's one of these, he's a guy that I think, for exactly what you just said, needs to get more eyes on him. And I think more people need to see him. And I think that I need a victory, but I need to play someone in the top 10.
Yeah.
Now, if I lose, then it's going to be, that's 3 in a row for me that I would have lost if I lose to him. And if he beats me, he'll kind of shoot up into the top 10. So it's a good match for both of us. And here's a perfect example. You're not going to see smack talk in that match, because I think it's going to be more of a gentleman's match, and I think there's going to be a lot of, not that I didn't respect Andy, but there certainly was a lot of smack talk beforehand. There's not going to be that with Inman. I think Inman and I are going to be, both understand what's at stake, with a lot of respect kind of going into the match.
You know that because you probably already recorded it already.
It did not. That is definitely not true.
Okay, moving away from all that stuff, let's talk about last night's show. It was number 238.
Yeah.
Almost on 250.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
It is pretty crazy. I remember when we did episode 2 with Cheese.
I don't know a lot about Cheese, by the way. I started going back and listening.
Nobody does. I think he's a spy in Russia now.
So you don't know what's happened to him?
No, I haven't talked to him in a long time, but he's great. John Schiesler is his name, actually. And he was, it's funny, had it not been for the Cheese Man, we wouldn't, I don't even know if we'd be talking right now, because we had no idea how to record a podcast. And Cheeser had like a broken down like karaoke machine, whatever the hell he was using. But he was shooting he was taping his sports podcast, and we asked him, hey man, we're going to start a podcast, would you want to be our engineer? And he was like, yeah man, let's do it. And he had been watching our videos, so he was able to do it for the first like 3 or 4 episodes. It might even longer than that, maybe 6 or 7
on a karaoke machine.
It wasn't an actual karaoke machine, but it was like, but it might as well have been. It was a mess.
I was gonna say, what the hell's going on over there?
Yeah, if you listen to the first few episodes, I mean, they sound terrible.
Oh, I know, I've heard them. They're terrible.
Yeah, they're terrible. The content is good, but the sound was good. I loved Cheeser, but it wasn't the best equipment.
Last night was all about sci-fi sequels, or was it? No, I'm just kidding.
That was my favorite comment that Ellis read. Man, Rosemary's Baby isn't a sci-fi film. Well, we're not there yet, buddy.
Why? I mean, it's 2 hours. Why can't people know that? So, okay, let me bring this up. This is a perfect opportunity to bring it up. So I mentioned to you on Twitter before, I don't know if you remember, but one of my favorite pastimes is actually watching you interact with the fans. And again, going back to what I said before about how much we appreciate your communication with us, but it's also like you get some really dumb tweets. like really, really stupid. And I think you just handle it so well. But I love reading your timeline when you're going. Sometimes you just go on a spill where you start quoting everybody and answering questions, and it always makes me laugh because I can just hear you say it with a sense of sarcasm and stuff. So it's always really fun to read that. But
yeah, it just depends. It totally depends on what's asked and stuff. Like sometimes people aren't as familiar with certain topics, so I don't mind answering it. Like I just going back to what we said before, it's just a matter on how it's asked. I'll respond to anything. I don't necessarily think things are dumb or because when it comes to like Star Wars questions and things, people aren't always in tune with certain things, and it might even ask something like, "Who's Luke's father?" It's like, fine. I'll just write back, watch the movie. And it's like, but I don't think that if someone's not being mean, I'm never going to chastise someone for asking a question that maybe you and I know,
Yeah, I know that just based on like the fact that I have my own show, I know if I go to work and someone's like, "Hey man, did you watch Captain America Civil War?" I instantly just get frustrated and I'm like, dude, do you not follow me on social media? I posted the review. So
right. Well, we assume that's the problem is that sometimes we just assume if someone's following us that they should know. But people have schedules. People don't know. Just think about how much stuff that you miss on Twitter, you miss in general and on the news or whatever it might be. And so that's why I don't really ever get mad or anybody or think anybody has like stupid questions.
Oh, I'm not saying I'm right in feeling that way. That's just my first instinct, and I know I need to bring it back a little bit. But I mean, I deal with that daily, but it's like you have to magnify that by 1,000. So that's pretty crazy to me that you're able to do that and keep that mentality. So I want to talk about things that you all do before these shows. So we mentioned the fart noises that you do before every taping. Are there any kind of rituals does everyone have a ritual that they do before they start taping? Any weird stuff?
I mean, on Thursdays, normally the way that date, Thursdays, Mark and I is kind of cool. Mine's a little bit more crazy now than Mark's, since Mark doesn't do movie talk on Thursdays anymore. But so I wake up and I head to radio on KLOS for Heidi and Frank every Thursday morning, and then Mark drives over there, meets me, and we're on in the mornings at 9 a.m. And if people don't know that, they can listen to it on I think iHeartRadio is where you can listen to it 8 a.m. PST every Thursday. So then we have to drive from where they're at, like in Los Angeles, and then drive all the way over to the studio Collider, and then we prep and we do movie talk. I do movie talk on Thursdays. And then I'll take a little bit of a break and then jump into Jedi Council. Used to do 2 mailbags afterwards, but mentally I just couldn't do it anymore. So it's like, all right, I need a break. But after I'm done, we usually tape Jedi Council around like 1 o'clock or like 1:30. Usually done by 2:30 or 3. By then, Miri has arrived and is usually in the office. So we'll start prepping, whether or not we will grab food or whatever it is. And then we would kind of go over the rundown about what's going down on the show, what we're going to do. Just crew and all that stuff, and then around like 5 o'clock or so, we always start in music. Brett Sheridan's been showing up around 4:30 or 5. I think he just likes to kind of get out of the house at this point. But he shows up and kind of adds that Brett Sheridan flair, and he's talking about the comments for about 3 hours, and then and then we get into then the Wangers show up around 5, and the kings of that studio they set up to get everything kind of ready and going for us. And we usually do the pre-production meeting around like 6:30, 6:15, 6:30, kind of go over what we're doing on the show. Do the mic checks around 6:45, as Copster would say, "Where's the pictures? Where's the pictures?" And then we get into shooting around 7 o'clock.
How long does it take to like tear down that set? If you're doing,
that's probably more of a Copster question now. But it's funny you say that, because last night I went in there and I was watching kind of just those guys. I love those guys so much, because just the way they kind of work as a unit together, and like hanging out like the Lords of Flatbush, and they're all like they're all kind of just sitting around the table. They're making videos. They made some funny behind the scene ones, but they're able to take their time because it's different from like Phase 5. They had no time in Phase 5. Like AfterBuzz would be shooting a show. Yeah. Would be done at like 4. We used to shoot at 6, so they would be done shooting at 5:15 or so, and the guys 5:30 maybe, and the guys would have to set up 5:30, 5:45, have everything ready, and then we're shooting at 6. They have more time now, so they're more relaxed. They're kind of chilling. They break stuff down, and we all went and saw Independence Day last night after the show, and we went over to grab seats for those guys, and they only took them probably like 15 minutes to maybe 20 to break down the set.
Now, is this a Cobster question? What are his breaks going to look like moving forward? Because he mentioned that it was going to change. Or is that something that you guys are changing?
We're both of us, because Cobster's been part of the crew now for it's coming on about 3 years. So I trust Cobster creatively. Very, very much. He's got a really good brain when it comes to these things. He's funny. He's on his stuff, and he knows how the show works. He knows what the audience responds to, and he's been doing Blu-rays for us for a long time. But he had ideas for the breaks to where he likes to shoot videos. He likes to do things, and instead of making the video breaks just the voiceover to what we've traditionally been doing, even back when kind of we were doing the Dobby's Corner thing. Now Cobster does it, and he does it in a way. He's going to start kind of make it a little more interactive with fans and kind of doing giveaways during the break. So it's I'm actually excited to see what he does in his breaks.
I always get tempted every time you guys bring up your contest for the week. I always get tempted to throw my name in the ring, but I know that there would be a mutiny if I ever won any of those things.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, you got to remember, Leanne in Phase 3, I think she won a ton of times, and she used to do stuff for us all the time. And I mean, Jen Kemp just won recently. We don't really, if you submit, you're part of Schmoeville. You're not the host of the Schmoeville podcast. You're a Schmoevillian.
Imagine if I won that Comic-Con trip. You don't think people would get really pissed off at that?
Well, the Comic-Con trip's different. That's a Collider thing. And I'm actually not making that decision who gets picked. Frosty is. So that's and this is not to make you feel bad, because I don't even know
who I am.
That's what I'm saying. I don't even know if Frosty knows who the hell you are. So like I would say do it.
Oh, I already did it.
Oh, good. Yeah.
No shame.
Yeah, you got a good shot.
So tell me a little bit more, if you can, about the Gentle Giant stuff. So
yeah, oh man, how cool is that?
Yeah, you spoke a lot about that last night. Miri did too, and it's like I'm not sure I fully understand how they're going to be involved. I didn't quite understand what exactly they're doing for you. So if you could just kind of clear that up. I know that they're incredibly talented, for one, if they pull it off the Han Solo. But so they're just building the materials in the background, or they're making figures, or
so they make collectibles, right?
Okay.
And on all different sizes. Like we might actually get like a 6-foot collectible, which is really awesome. Yeah. But like there's they make all these collectibles, and it's not just Star Wars stuff. Like they have tons of stuff, whether it's you saw that Deadpool one that we showed last night. They had the Pirates of the Caribbean stuff. They had like Scarface stuff. They have tons of movie collectibles. All of these collectibles we got to see, and Miri and I took a tour of their studio about 2 weeks ago, and dude, I was in heaven. Yeah. I was walking around, I didn't want to leave. Like all the things that they had, like all the molds that they had made, and the Avengers stuff that they had, and they had Ripley stuff from Aliens, and it was just really great. And we talked about kind of what we're going to be doing. And so right now, when you look at the set, it just looks like a clean cabin. And so we're going to put shelves. Yeah, we're going to put shelves kind of in the background, and there'll be some posters back there, but there'll also be some pictures. But in the forefront, you're going to have a lot of the Gentle Giant collectibles, and on the table, and maybe on the Wanger table, we're going to have a lot of these cool collectibles. And the beauty of it is that every time they have like a new piece that they're kind of debuting, they're going to have us kind of show it off and show you guys. And this is something that we know we have a lot of fans that they want to look at these collectibles. They want to get these collectibles. We're getting a Comic-Con exclusive that they're going to put on the show. So there's all these things that and it's really worth it because there's a lot of, like I said, we get stuff that people want to do. Like they wanted us to do toy show, like a show on toys. I don't think that we're ever going to do that. Well, I don't want to say ever, but right now. But this is a way for us to say, hey, look at these things that you guys can get, and you guys, if there's particular things that you like, and dress the show, because this is when the Gentle Giant guys came in to our studio last week, I told one of the guys, I said, what my goal and what I want people to do is when they see the set and they see the collectibles, that they just see a screenshot of it and they go, oh, that's the Schmoes set. Yeah. Like they see that just from that. If they see a John McClane figure next to a Venom collectible, and they're like, oh, not only are those from the Schmo set, I want to get those. I want to put those. I want to get them. I want to put them on my desk, and that's kind of the goal and what the partnership hopefully will become.
I guess in the past few weeks, when I've heard you talk about creating the set, I kind of had it in my mind that they were just like fabricating things for you. So then when you threw out the collectible thing, I kind of got confused. I didn't know if it was both, but it makes a lot more sense now. So yeah, cool. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what they're going to be doing. That's really cool. And make sure everybody,
me too.
Make sure and follow those guys, like Kristian said last night, and give them some love. Let's talk about movie blind spot. So sure. I am kind of always talking about this as well, and I know that it has bothered me a lot that you haven't seen John Carpenter's thing, by the way. Like
I know, not you and everybody else.
A lot. Like it's my favorite horror movie. I asked you to talk about it with me, and you said no, by the way.
I know. I watched it last night.
Bullshit.
Yeah, it's bullshit.
I was gonna say, because then we would have had to talk about movies on here. No, all right.
I know. No.
The biggest takeaway from movie blind spot is Ken Napzok, okay?
So, The Godfather, right? Didn't it break your heart?
Listen, all right, so I love Ken Napzok. I guess I didn't know him as well as I thought. I figured a guy who comes on as a producer for you guys, happens to love movies, he does the news every week. I thought he loved movies. I had no idea that he felt this way about all of the things that he mentioned last night. So can you explain that? Like, where did you pick him up?
Where did I find that homeless bum? Is what you're saying, Kenny?
I'm baffled that there's actually someone on the crew who just.
He's a grouchy old soul, but he's full of shit too. By the way, because he definitely loves movies. That was how Ken and I really started to bond. That we talked about movies I met Kenny during my stand-up days. Yeah. Like that's kind of where he and I became close. He was a host of the two. It was called Rebels of Comedy, and then it was called White Boy Comedy. And he was the host of those shows. And we had softball games, barbecues, and all this type of stuff.
That's sort of like what his character was, and grasping at straws.
It was definitely a cartoon version of that, yeah, for sure. But yeah, that's kind of obviously what it was based off of, knowing how well that I knew Ken. Sure. But yeah, Ken and I used to talk about movies all the time. Our love for both that and wrestling is where he and I started to bond. But yeah, he gets stubborn, and he likes to make a point sometimes. Oh, I'll never watch that because I'm not in the mob. And someone's like, well, do you live in Westeros, guy? Come on, and you watch Game of Thrones. So it's like he's full of shit. But he's like, well, I read the mob books, then watch the mob movie, you hump. But he absolutely. The problem is that he's so damn busy these days that if he was working over here, or if back in the old days, I could probably get him to do some bit to where he'd have to watch The Godfather and give his review. We still haven't gotten the grouchy old hump to watch Gremlins yet. So
yeah, that's another great point. The fact that he works for Screen Junkies now, and this guy basically bathes in movies. So I think the statement he said last night was he's not going to watch something that he knows won't affect him or something like that. I'm like, how the hell do you know if you haven't watched it? It just seems like he only likes franchise pictures or something.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, is that he just sometimes he says things to kind of to help show off that I'm a grouchy old man now, and that's what I'm going to do. He's trying to be Harrison Ford.
It just absolutely blew my mind. It'd be like if I wanted to host a sports show, but the only knowledge of sports I have is Kentucky basketball. Like somehow it just you don't buy it at all. So I don't know what to think about Ken moving forward. This just changes the whole thing.
Yeah, well, he's still. I mean, he still has a long way to go before we start calling him Little Evil.
That's for sure, man. JTE, he was better last night.
Yeah,
but I am all for this Little Evil thing because I mean it fits him. My goodness,
perfect, right?
My goodness.
Yeah,
I think actually on last week's episode when he had Luke had a little tirade that I actually took out of the episode, but apparently. He loathes JTE currently.
He does. Does he? Is it like a legit loathe, or is it like I'm following the wrestling storylines and I'm supposed to not like him, so I'm not gonna like
the wresling part? Like, he
that's
doesn't legitimately hate him, but
right.
His new little character that he's got going on here. It was hilarious, but I thought it was almost a little too much, so I took it out of the episode.
Took it out, yeah.
But that's okay. All right, so. The stream cut off last night, so I didn't really get to hear the announcement, but I caught it in the chat room later on. New crew member, Scott Mans.
Yeah. Really fucking excited.
I just want to know like what it means. For one, I love Scott Mans, but you also said that Sinead and Ashley were a part of the crew now, but we've only...
Not Ashley.
Sinead, excuse me. Sorry.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that Sinead was a part of the crew now, but what does it mean if you're a part of the crew now? Because we haven't seen Sinead.
Right. Well, Sinead's just a matter of. There's a difference with the. It's a good question. The difference is that with Sinead, we have a rotation as far as co-hosts go, where Sasha's our lead co-host and Tiffany is. We try to get in at least once a month. And Sinead is on our rotation, but there's not like a set schedule with Sinead. So if we need Sinead for certain times, or she wants to come on and there's certain things that she wants to talk about, then we'll schedule her in for sure. She's just, it's like if you think about it as far as, like I said, starters and people who are like Sinead's going to come off the bench and hit a 3 from downtown, because we know what just a matter of when we fit her in to the show, what she wants to do, but she's on the rotation, if that makes sense. Right. As far as the Mance Man, we're going to try to get him in weekly. If not, and you're actually getting this as an exclusive here, buddy. Oh, wow. So if what he's going to do, we're going to do a new bit on the show, and it's going to be called Schmoeography.
Okay.
And it's going to be around anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes, and it's essentially where, let's say we have BFG coming out. Uh-huh. And so Mance will do a Schmoeography on Steven Spielberg.
Perfect.
And so he will talk about some of his movies. He will talk about fun facts. He will take questions from the table, and he will essentially just really get into the Schmoeography of Steven Spielberg. And he's also going to be helping us with guest bookings.
Perfect. Is that going to replace anything, or are you just kind of squeezing it into everything that already's there?
It's not necessarily going to replace anything. I think that we're gonna fit it into the show. And now that means that we cut some stuff down a little bit, or it means that the show now becomes 2 hours and 10 minutes. Then either way, that's the beauty of us being over here now. Like when we were during Phase 5, we had a time that we had to hit. We had an hour and 55 minutes, no more, no less. Right. But now, like last night, we went a little over, and that was it. That was fine. You guys got a longer show. So the show might be a little longer. And I think going back to a question you asked earlier, that's another one of my goals, is that I would love for the Schmoes show to be every Thursday night for the 2-hour show, but then do an hour version every day.
Cool.
That's kind of something I would like to do. It's just we just don't have the budget for that right now.
So, and you also have to worry about, or do you have to worry about like crossover, like making it too much like something you're already doing on Movie Talk, like a daily news thing?
Well, that's the thing, is it wouldn't be news. It would be more about that's why we changed the name to the Schmoes No Show. Sure. Because we wanted to, and it's also, if you noticed, we've been doing this a lot more. The first 15 minutes of the show, we don't talk about movies at all. Correct. Really. Yep. We just kind of break down, and we show more about the personality of the show. And that's kind of
with the popcorn.
So all that stuff. Yeah. It's a matter of just showing who your hosts are, as opposed to what they're talking about right off the bat. That's why if someone tunes in, like you'll see comments be like, wait a minute, the first 15 minutes is just them talking about themselves. Like, then this ain't your show, man. You should watch something else. There's other shows that you should definitely check out, but we want to go personality first, and we want to go personality, 5 days a week if we can. And there could be anything. If maybe it's a particular news story that drops, but it's more about the conversations and opinions and personality about things that pertain to that particular news story, and then just stories that might happen about the first time you saw. Let's say we start talking about Civil War, and then it turns into a conversation about how the first time we saw the Avengers and who we think the Avengers would be on our team. It just comes to turn to a weird conversation, whatever it might be. It's just an hour. It's just an idea to where I think we can turn it into that kind of daily talk show eventually.
That's another thing that's really frustrating to see, too, is the people that call that shit out, because I think, and you can correct me on this, but Schmoes and Collider have nearly the same amount of subscribers. And I'm sure the majority of their subscribers follow both, right? Is that probably...
That's what I would assume. That's probably correct, yeah.
So the fact that they are so upset with seeing your personality on Schmoes, like, you're just making it Collider. So why wouldn't they, if they're subscribed to both, want that separate show with the personality and everything? It makes no sense.
You also don't know who's saying it, how old the person might be, if it's the first time they stumbled upon it. Maybe they see a headline on the side. Maybe they're watching another related video, and then the headline they see science fiction movies. And then they click on that, and then they're thrown off by the first 15 minutes. I understand it, but it's also, you tried it out, and either stick around or don't, but that's the show.
I hope you're ready for this Q&A, by the way. My phone's been blowing up over here.
Do it.
Are you ready to get this thing going?
Sure.
I've got to start off with the bang, because I don't want to forget this. I laughed my ass off at this question. Is Mark still in the room?
No, he's prepping for movie talk.
Damn it. I wanted him to hear this. Chase Hutchison. Kristian, would you rather have sex with your wife in Mark's body or have sex with Mark in your wife's body?
This guy Chase has issues. The guy's been asking this question for like 3 years.
Really?
Yes. It's like he asked this. It's so stupid. He asked this thing during the after hours show. He's got an unhealthy question. This question has been coming up from this guy Chase. Like, he just wants it answered, and I will answer everything else, but I'm going to make Chase wait once again, because that is just way too disturbing of a question.
When I mentioned his name, did you already know what was coming?
Yeah, no, but when you started to ask the question, I think he has it on timer, that it's just like it's supposed to, this question's supposed to be asked every 2.5 months at 10:45 a.m. PST. I just know it's coming. I hear the ding. Oh, here it comes.
All right, next question then. Sorry, Chase. Brian Fernandez, Schmoeville's Facebook admin. If you were doing something else besides Schmoes Know, what would you be doing?
Man, I think I would, in a different life, like working for the UFC would have been pretty cool. Working in movies. I love stand up very much. Yeah. It's just but single Harloff was able to do stand up well for a very long time. But just as married with a kid and with my other interests, just wasn't able to do it. But I still think, I don't know. Maybe if I was able to make a big budget action sci-fi film, that's something that I'd probably want to do.
Do you still have that mindset of the stand-up comedian? Like, are you always coming up with new material even still? Has that ability ever left you?
It doesn't really leave you. You always kind of think about things, about bits, and I've been telling myself for years, I'm like, oh, if I ever got back on stage, I'd kind of say this, or I'd do that, and then it's like, I'm like, who am I bullshitting? But the thing is, when I go, that's why I don't go to the Comedy Store as much as I used to. That was my home. So when I go there, I feel like you saw Creed, right?
Yeah.
So I just feel like Rocky when he walks into Mickey's gym. It's just like you see it and you feel like that old stinky Jim, and I always feel like I just should get back up there and fight. But then it's like, if Rocky got in the ring now, he'd get knocked out in the first round.
Stan Wilkes. Hey, Kristian and Ryan. Oh, thank you. I finished my finals recently, so my question is, how did you both feel when you first finished school, and how was that feeling?
Good question. It was scary, obviously, because I always knew I was coming out to California. When I was in the 7th grade, my mom had taken me out to San Diego, and it just stuck in my head that eventually I was going to move there. So when I graduated Florida State, my dad and I drove. We drove.
You drove.
We drove to LA, and I hated it for the first couple of months I was here because I didn't know anybody. I would just basically stay in my apartment. And I played video games, and I wouldn't go anywhere. I had this shit job I really didn't like, and yeah, it's intimidating. But it just goes back to what I was saying before: is that you just got to think about an end goal and just kind of drive towards that.
For sure. To answer it quickly, I didn't actually finish school. I was in a band at the time, and we were like ready to talk to labels and stuff. So I was just ready to take that full time. So I did that, and then I never went back because everything that I want to do in life, I didn't really feel like needed school. So here I am talking to Kristian Harloff. Let's see. Josh Krebner really wanted to ask this question. He tried on Twitter, wasn't enough characters. I'm not even sure this makes sense, but he really wants me to ask. So, if you and Mark could be featured as playable characters / NPCs, I don't know what that is, in the next Lego Star Wars, living, working on Harloff Minor, or as live-action self-playing cameos in a what the hell are you asking me, Josh? I'm sorry, Josh. I have no idea what this question. Moving on. A Mount Rushmore of actors or directors, Kristian.
Mount Rushmore actors or directors, or together. We'll do actors.
Okay.
I mean, you got to put Marlon Brando in there. So that's old school, kind of middle of the road. Even though, like, I put Pacino in there. I mean, I'm not talking about his later stuff, but early Pacino. Sure. And I put DiCaprio in there, I think, for the newer generation. So those are the ones for the newer. As far as the directors go,
well, Mount Rushmore is 4 people, and you only named 3.
Oh yeah, what I did I put 3? And then one more. I guess I would put. If I want to go, I think I put Denzel in there, maybe.
Wow. Okay. I mean, I like that choice.
Yeah,
I just didn't think about it.
Yeah, I think I put Denzel in there, and then. If you go to directors, I would go Kubrick, Hitchcock, Scorsese, and Spielberg.
Great choice. I'm glad you threw Spielberg in there for sure. Mick, okay, I'm glad this kid's asking this. Mick Savagini, maybe? We want details about the web series. Let's talk about that a little bit more.
Sure. I mean, I think that we're going to do it as a full pilot. It's shaped as a full pilot. I'm pretty excited because
Sasha wrote only a pilot, not like 6 webisodes or whatever. It's not built that way.
No, it's going to be. It's written as about a half an hour episode.
Okay.
And it's going to be shot as a half an hour episode, and it's just as details. My goal is that by the time we get to shooting, I've got an announcement that we're going to shoot 5 episodes. But right now it's just 1. And I'm 90% I locked down a pretty good director. Okay. So to go back to what you guys were talking about last week, Copster and those guys will not be directing it.
Okay.
There's going to be someone that I worked with for a very long time that had heard. I'd come up with the idea back when Bonnie was on the show, and I was started to come up with this idea back and forth after a few episodes that she was on, and then we started to kind of formulate the idea, and then with the new crew as it evolved, just kind of taking everyone's personalities and putting it into this format. And then I told Sasha about it, and then Sasha took it, wrote a pilot off of it. Then I brought it to my friend, and he's very interested in directing it now. and we have almost all the roles kind of cast. There's a couple things that we're kind of working around and moving on. So we're just waiting on the draft from Sasha, which should be coming pretty soon. Then I'm going to get that to the director, and then we're going to kind of take it from there. But it's moving at a nice speed right now.
So my question, I don't remember if I said it last week or just thought it last week. Why do we have to wait till December? Is it just completely a matter of scheduling? Because again, I had no idea that you were actually seeking like a legit director. So is it just a matter of scheduling?
It's not scheduling. No? It's just you want to get it right.
Sure.
You want to get it right. It's also, you guys got to remember budget.
Yeah.
You know, there's budget things that we got to do. There's you want to have the right. You want to have enough cash. You want to make sure that there's maybe a sponsor involved. You know, there's these things that you want to do that if you give us that time that we can gear up to go by December. And it definitely has a lot to do with schedule too, because then that's kind of when it slows down at a certain point for everybody here that we can make it work. Yeah. It's a possibility that we could shoot earlier, but I like the idea of shooting in December.
Sure.
And because the characters are a lot of fun.
Ben Kramer wants to know, can you convince Mance and Alicia to reboot Profiles on Collider Video? Well, that wouldn't really be up to them, though, would it?
It wouldn't be up to them, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think they both have different. I think they both are just doing different things, and that's kind of why we're doing Schmoeography to give Mance his platform, and Mance is going to be doing that's what Mance excels at, and Mance is an idiot savant when it comes to films, and to have him kind of giving a 101 breakdown every week to these, I think it's because when I had come up with the idea for Profiles back when we started the network, it was something that I always wanted to do, and Alicia was the first person I had thought of when I had pitched it to her, and then we both agreed that Mance would be the guy that she should do it with, and it's just you just watch what he does in that show. Right. It just makes sense that he would kind of come back and do this. It's going to be kind of our version, but different on the Schmo show.
Sure. Zach Slosslin, are there any YouTube personalities that you want to see on the show that haven't already been on, and he would also love a belated birthday shout out?
Well, happy birthday. And someone who's never been on the show before that I'd want a YouTube personality. Trying to think if there's someone we've reached out to. No, we've had the SourceFed guys on. I mean, who I'd like to have on, who's a buddy of mine actually, we just haven't worked, is Bruce Green from Rooster Teeth. I'd probably like to have him on.
I'm not sure who that is, but I will look him up.
Yeah, look him up.
Vanessa Wilson wants to know, who's Ryan Snelling? Thank you very much, Vanessa, for that.
Perfect. We don't really know, Vanessa. We're trying to figure that out.
No idea. He just kind of infiltrated and he won't leave. Yeah. Worst theater experience of your life? I think you've answered that before.
The worst one? I mean, I'll tell you the one that I made the worst for somebody. I told this on Movie Talk. Did you watch the episode when I talked about when I went to see Bruno?
I think so. Did you talk about it on? I talked about
it on Movie Talk, and this is definitely the worst experience for this guy, not necessarily me. But my wife and I went to see Bruno, and it was a packed house, and my wife brought this like big sparkling water.
I remember.
and like it was, and I don't know whether it fell on the floor or what happened to it, but like I opened it up and it just sprayed into this guy's face like first blood, like when Rambo was getting hit by the fire hose. Yeah. And the guy was just completely in shock. He didn't know what, and his face, he just stood there. There's no way he enjoyed that movie. It must have been like sticking and smelling like raspberry sparkling water. I mean, like it was just like this, it just couldn't have been enjoyable.
All right, we'll wrap it up with one more. A lot of people wanted to know what your passion was outside of Collider and Schmoes, so I don't know if they want you to pursue that instead or what, but
maybe to leave.
Okay, we'll go back to Zach Slosslin because I think there are some repeats. But when grading a film, this will be the last question. When grading a film, do you try to separate your enjoyment of the film from how well made it is when coming up with your final rating, or is that a crucial detail?
Do I try to separate? Sorry, can you ask the question again?
Do you try and separate your enjoyment from the film from like take it away from how well it's actually made when you're coming?
No, because I know that a lot of critics maybe do that, but that's not. I review the movie on the enjoyment, and I'll say it as much too. And if I say, a perfect example is the Free State of Jones. For that movie too, I enjoyed watching the first 45 minutes of it, and then I just felt that it became a very sloppy film. And then I even going to look back at the beginning of it, I just didn't think Gary Ross did a great job making the movie, and the enjoyment of it just kind of went up and down throughout the whole film. But I can also understand when a movie is I'm just having like Pop Star, not necessarily a well-made film, but it was funny. I got some laughs out of it, so I enjoyed it. So I gave it a positive review.
Perfect. And that's what it gives everybody their voice too in this space. I mean, you got to talk about how much you enjoyed it. I mean, that's huge. So that's it for the questions. Thank you so much to everyone who contributed to that post. Thank you very much for doing that. And the final thank you goes to you for being on this show. I greatly appreciate it, and also appreciate your announcement that this episode will now be on the Schmoes No Show podcast feed. So that's pretty exciting.
Everybody should know that. Like obviously, if you're listening to this on YouTube, you can also find this on the podcast channel. The iTunes feed and Podcast One. We're going to be putting all of Snelling's future Schmoeville episodes here on the podcast feed. So it's something that's a lot of fun. As for the breakdown, every week these guys kind of do this and have some really good chats with fellow Schmoevillians. It'll be a lot of fun.
Right. If you're new to this show, this is kind of a different kind of episode because we have Kristian on, but usually when we have Paul on or any other guest host, it's a much better, much more recap-y type of show. So there's that. Looking forward to everything else moving forward. So I appreciate it.
No sweat.
Anyway, thank you very much, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.